views and opinions expressed may not reflect those of the Allen County Public Library, Access Fort Wayne, and or any other supporting groups. If you are interested in producing your own programs for Access Fort Wayne, you can contact us at 260-421-1250.
Welcome to Countyline. Hi everyone, I'm Mike Green and welcome to Countyline, the program featuring news and information about Allen County government. Well, every 2 years in late December, newly elected county officials gather with their family and friends here at the Allen County Courthouse for inauguration ceremonies. Now, among those who will be sworn in to begin serving in 2015 are two new members of County Council, Sharon Tucker and Joel Benz, along with Recorder Anita Mather and Sheriff Dave Gladio. And there will also be many familiar faces who were re-elected taking the oath of office.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the official celebration of the inauguration of the newest members of Allen County's leadership team. And for some of our honored guests today, this is a first-time experience for them, and it's a wonderful one. For others, it's an experience they've been through a few times. But for each of you, I know it's a special occasion. Congratulations to every one of you. And speaking for everyone not taking that oath of office today as well, we're honored to be here and share this moment with you. I was thinking back to the day that I first went through this, a mere 26 years ago. It was 1988, January 1st, and I was sworn in as a city councilman for Fort Wayne. And to put a little perspective on it, I thought I'd go back in time and visit that moment with some of the people here behind me today. Commissioner Nelson Peters, in 1988, he was the Human Resources Director for the county, soon to become Human Resources Director for the city, but most importantly, he was my campaign chairman for my campaign. Nelson's first victory. Circuit Court Judge Tom Feltz was a renowned piano player, talented singer, and a pretty darn good lawyer working for a local law firm. Then there was Judge Fran Gull, and I just talked to Fran about this because she's had a lot of interesting jobs in her career, but in January of '88 she was about to take on the new job of magistrate for then Circuit Court Judge Tom Ryan, Tom Feltz's predecessor. You can see this is a little bit of all in the family here as you look at all the years and relationships. Judge John Surbeck, a successful defense attorney and public defender working in the trenches of the criminal justice system. I remember I was sitting next to him on a few of those days in the time. Judge Craig Bobay was one of our county's top probation officers at the time. Judge Dan Heath was fresh off the success of being the new Mayor Paul Helmke's campaign director. And soon to become chief of staff for the new mayor. Judge Stan Levine was a private attorney, but more importantly, he was the city council attorney. And Stan and I worked for 8 years together. Stan is fond of telling me the 8 best years of his life. Were they not, Stan? Your Honor. Sheriff Dave Gladio was just beginning his enforcement career, law enforcement, but as a civilian confinement officer at the county jail. Auditor Tara Klutz was in kindergarten. And Linda Bloom was completing her 35th year as a county elected official. I'm going to pay for that. But you know I love you, Linda. There's a lot of history here today and some history being made today as well.
Thank you, David, for those kind remarks. Most everything he said could be applied to Senator Long as well. Most of us who are not involved with the General Assembly or with state government don't really have a strong idea of how important Senator Long is to the state of Indiana as President Pro Tem of the Senate. Each legislative session and in between, he shapes Indiana through the legislation that he guides and helps others to guide through both houses of the General Assembly on its way for a signature by our governor. It's a thankless job, but it's one that is so critical and so important and yet so unnoticed that I hope that you'll take the opportunity today to thank him for what he does, because his service to the state of Indiana is just extraordinary. Next, I want to begin our inauguration ceremonies here and the administration of oaths by thanking you personally for the honor of administering these oaths today. You are my colleagues and my friends. We share the same love of people and public service. Many of us started our careers in public service at about the same time. I won't pin that on the young lady who was in kindergarten in 1988, but many of the other folks behind me started our time in public service at about that time. In fact, I am extraordinarily impressed by the fact that among those taking the oath of county office today, there are 450 combined years of public services to the citizens of Allen County. What an amazing, amazing testament. And the fact alone of those 450 years speaks volumes to the esteem with which these folks are held by the citizens of Allen County. It is the love of people and the love of public service that has brought us together again today. And when I think of public service, what I consider what public service means, the great Roman philosopher and orator, Cicero, as we pronounce his name today, comes to mind and inspires me. Interestingly enough, Cicero was born 2,111 years ago this week in the small Italian town of Arpidum, about 100 miles outside of Rome. His father was part of what's called the equestrian order, which means back then the upper middle class of Roman society. He was a prodigy, and throughout his life he was distinguished by his extraordinary intelligence, and because of that his father determined to send him to the very best schools, both in Greece and in Rome. Cicero was fluent in both Greek and Latin, and he studied oratory under the very finest teachers of the time. In fact, many consider Cicero to be the finest orator in the history of the world. He is almost solely responsible as well for our understanding of Greek philosophy, because he, as a Roman citizen speaking Latin, translated most of the Greek philosophers into Latin in his spare time. But it is public service, his public service, that I most admire and that I believe we should be inspired by today. Cicero always sought a life of public service because he believed that public service was honorable. Indeed, it was Cicero's embodiment of the ideal of public service and civic virtue that inspired our founders, Washington, Adams, and Jefferson, to both admire and to refer to him by name many times as they framed our nation and its offices. Importantly, Cicero, and with no small coincidence, our founders, did what seems to be the most difficult thing to do in government today. They compromised. Cicero himself did it over and over again, repeatedly throughout his career in multiple attempts to save the Roman Republic, the form of government that our Philadelphia Convention in 1787 framed for us today. Most importantly, Cicero also had an unwavering moral compass and a strong sense of what's right and what's wrong. From his very first position as a public servant in Sicily In 75 BC, at the age of 31, and then as a lawyer, and throughout his career in a succession of ever higher office, he earned a reputation as an honest man of utmost integrity. For example, it is Cicero who wrote, "Justice is the set and constant purpose that gives every man his due." And it is Cicero who counseled, "What is permissible is not always honorable." And again, it is Cicero who over and over again showed that the good of the people is the greatest law. Although Cicero was an outspoken opponent of Julius Caesar as he consolidated his power over the years, Caesar recognized Cicero's integrity and inherent authority and repeatedly asked Cicero to join his small but ever more powerful oligarchy. Even as Caesar became the first dictator, or first became dictator in 48 BC, he again asked Cicero to join his government, and again, this time at great personal risk, Cicero refused and retired to his estate rather than be part of a Senate that allowed Julius Caesar to govern as a dictator. However, after Caesar's assassination, and as Mark Antony consolidated his power in a power-sharing arrangement with Octavian, soon to be Caesar Augustus, Cicero returned to the Senate to deliver a blistering set of speeches against Mark Antony. Because of his leadership and his example, Cicero was the most popular Roman figure of those tumultuous times. But when his oratory failed to halt the destruction of the Roman Republic, Mark Antony prescribed him and sent out guards to find him and execute him. When the guards finally found him, he offered his neck for execution, saying, "Soldier, there is nothing proper about what you're doing, but do try and kill me properly." So as you can see, Cicero is the public servant who inspires me, but there are many, many others. Before Cicero, in the early Roman Republic, there was Cincinnatus, who was twice elected dictator or supreme commander during wartime, and who twice returned to his farm without pretension after his duty was done. In later, more familiar times, we can look to the British Parliament's Edmund Burke during the American Revolution, the American founders themselves, of course, Abraham Lincoln, and the Roosevelts, all along the way. And then, thankfully, we can also look to more and more women leaders, like Clara Barton, Susan B. Anthony, and Eleanor Roosevelt, who have also given examples to us. So today, as they take their oaths of office and as they commence their new terms of public office, I ask these folks to remember these leaders and public servants, especially their honesty, their integrity, their moral compass, and their courage. And finally, as you go forth each and every day in your new term, as you consult and lead and make the decisions that execute the trust that you have been given by the people of Allen County, I ask you to remember that the most important person you will ever serve in office is the next person you meet.
This is the Allen County War Memorial Coliseum, and on the other side is the exhibit hall here. Pretty soon, all of this is going to be gone, and instead, it's going to move out in this direction. One of the biggest projects that's taken place here at the Coliseum probably since the roof was raised, and Randy is Randy Brown, the general manager here at the Coliseum, and he's going to tell us a little bit about this huge project that's underway right now. Randy, first of all, thanks for taking time to join us. I know you're extremely busy, not just with the Coliseum, but with this as well. Tell us what you're out here doing.
Well, Mike, glad to have you out here today at the Coliseum, or the Dust Bowl as it may be called. But what's happening behind us is we're adding 27,000 square feet of new exhibit space. That's not just exhibit space, it's multi-use, it's meeting rooms. For times when we're doing volleyball, we'll add volleyball courts, tournaments. For wrestling, all of the expo plus the new space will be used. So truly multi-purpose space. And already in our first year of use, which will be after January 1 of 2016, we've had a significant number of bookings already. So, the contractors are under the gun to get this done in the next year. And the first step was to bring in, as you look behind us, 1,000 truckloads of dirt.
And kind of give us an idea, and Larry will kind of widen out and spread around, but as I said, everything from here is just going out in this direction, right?
Right. If you've been in the Blue Room for a function, the Blue Room will be demolished. The Expo corridor, which is that walkway with the carpeting going to the Appleseed Room and down toward the Rotunda, almost all of that corridor, that exterior wall is going to be blown out, and it's going to become much wider. We're going to have a new drop-off area for cars, so as you're coming to an event, dropping a guest off with a covered canopy, and then all of this. And the total space that we're adding is about 50,000 square feet new. We're renovating 18,000 square feet of existing space. So it's going to be pretty amazing once it's done. This will take our total exhibit space over 200,000 square feet of space, and our total building square footage up just over 1 million square feet under roof.
Give us a little idea as to how this is going to help you folks, because obviously the more space you have, the more things you can do, and the more shows you can bring in.
Well, a couple of key points there is, one, you want to keep your existing customer base, keeping those shows that we have. And I'm talking shows like the Farm Show, Vera Bradley, the Home and Garden Show, the Boat Show, and on and on. And those shows, they need more space. So that's one step. The other is we've had a number of shows that have outgrown us, and they've gone to other markets. We've done major food shows in the past, and the problem we had there is we didn't have enough meeting room space. So not exhibit this time, but having 5 new meeting rooms that will support their trade show activity is going to enable us to bring them back to the Coliseum.
And as you say, it's not just a matter of having just the space. It's going to be the flexibility you're going to have in order to do maybe several things at one time.
Absolutely. The new space can do 5 different functions at once, or it can be contiguous with Expo 2, Expo 1, and in one large space. Again, with our exhibit space on the 100 level, this first level when you come in by the box office, 200,000 square feet of exhibit space on this one level. So that puts us number 2 in the state of Indiana, keeps us firmly planted, second largest city in the state. There's a lot of events that want to come here to Fort Wayne, but before the facility just hasn't been quite big enough.
And if you don't have it, they're going to go someplace where they do have it.
That's right.
The competitive aspect that's in there is important to keep in
mind. And our
mind.
competition isn't anybody in Fort Wayne. Again, you look at our size, our average show is 80,000 square feet, and there's no one else in town that can do 80,000 square feet. But it's looking at Dayton and Grand Rapids, and to a lesser extent Evansville, but more likely Indianapolis, Chicago, and Detroit.
And you're already hearing from some of these folks who are hearing about this, and you're telling me that there's a great deal of excitement out there.
There is, and plus I look at the value. This project's a little bit more than $15 million, but when you think about, we've got the space, so we didn't have any land costs. We've got very competitive bids, so we're getting a lot for our money, and with the modernization, we keep this facility developed as a state-of-the-art complex with where it is, not just for today, but positioning for the future.
And we've talked about that time and time again. You're out there all over the country trying to find entertainment acts, shows, different exhibits that can come in to Fort Wayne. And the more you can keep using this facility over an entire calendar year's time span, the better it is for us and for the community as well.
Right. This week, we will go over the million mark for the year. 1 million guests for this calendar year. That'll make the 24th consecutive year where we've hosted over 1 million guests. We consistently do 1,300 to 1,400 events per year. And we think once this room comes online the very first year, we're going to see an increase of about 200 use days. So that'll take our facility use up to the range of 1,600 to 1,700 for the year.
And explain to folks the money that's being used for this investment.
One last point with that before, and that is when we talk about attendance, when we talk about the number of events, what we're really talking about too is economic impact.
Right.
And when we talk economic impact, the Coliseum consistently does between $100 and $115 million per year of economic impact. And economic impact really amounts to jobs for our friends and neighbors. So when our out-of-town guests are coming in and staying in hotels, going out to restaurants, buying gasoline, going shopping at the mall, all those things, it's about it's jobs.
Right. So the money is coming from the tax here around the Coliseum, in the area around the Coliseum.
One way to look at it is a TIF area. The Coliseum is a TIF area. It's called the Professional Sports and Convention Development Area, and it generates approximately $2.6 million a year for the Coliseum. And our debt service for this will be just a little bit over $1.1 million. So we're doing this expansion, but we're still leaving plenty of funding available for those other capital needs, those improvements. So we continue to maintain the Coliseum as a state-of-the-art complex. That the other interesting thing with the Coliseum is we're self-supporting. The operation of the Coliseum is 100% self-sustaining through operations, through those events, those rental fees, parking dollars that we collect. That's how we pay our bills.
And again, this should really be looked at as an investment, because the money you're putting into this, you're going to be able, we hope, and believe you will, be able to not only make it back, but more than that, with the shows you're bringing in.
Right. Making it back two ways. One is earned income, so how we pay our bills, but the other, really the bigger number, and the more as important a number, is the economic impact, the job creation for our region.
And again, how long is this going to be going on?
Construction, it needs to be done by January 1 of 2016, because New Year's Day we have a move-in. The bridal show will be moving into the space. So again, we've got 14 months, and we're off to a great start. Foundations behind us, as you can see, are pretty well in. In February, the steel goes up. By June 1st, we have a roof. And then they'll be pouring the concrete floors, and we should be pretty much dried in at that point.
And really, you're just kind of giving up some of your parking space, and that's really all you're having to do here.
Right now, we've taken up about 500 parking spaces. Once we're done and we take down the construction fences, it'll be about 250 spaces that we've lost. But again, we took this into account when we tore Memorial Stadium down. We knew this project was on the drawing board. So we picked up 800 parking spaces, knowing that we were going to have a loss of somewhere between 250 and 300 spaces once the conference center was complete. And that's now the new name for this space. This is the Coliseum Conference Center.
Okay.
It'll be a level of service, of amenities and technology that isn't found anywhere else in the really the four-state region. So some amenities here that people are going to be amazed when they see this come January 1 of 16.
Well, can't wait for that to come around. Randy, thanks a lot for your time. Appreciate it. Look forward to the updates as this goes along, and we'll be back here hopefully before January 1 of 2016 to see the finished product and all the great things that you folks are doing. Thanks again for joining us. We appreciate it. Well, this past August, we brought you the ribbon-cutting ceremony officially opening Stonebridge, Allen County's $6.3 million shovel-ready business park. Well, recently, the Allen County Commissioners and the Redevelopment Commission presented some major news about Stonebridge.
We appreciate you taking the time to come out and join us today. We are pleased to announce today the sale of 4 parcels in the Stonebridge Industrial Park, with a number of options being taken out on the remaining property. Today, we actually put $2.1 million in the bank. And that wouldn't happen without the thanks to the Redevelopment Commission, the County Council, the Department of Planning Services, and Greater Fort Wayne, Inc. It really takes that kind of a partnership to make what happened today and what we anticipate in the future to continue to happen. Let me give you a little historical perspective. Back in 2005, we were told that we needed shovel-ready sites in this community. So we all looked at each other and said, what are shovel-ready sites? Well, we went from that sort of a mindset to actually putting together a program for shovel-ready sites that the region itself ultimately adopted for use in this 10-county area. So we began purchasing properties back in 2011 with the purchase of a 71-acre parcel on Dawkins Road. That quickly became the home of the new SDI Lafarga plant with an investment of $40 million and about 50 employees with an annual payroll of around $2.5 million. So that was really our first win coming out of the gate. We didn't really want to get into the development business. We felt collaboratively that we didn't belong in the development business. But the fact of the matter is, at that time, we couldn't really find any willing partners in the private sector, and we were at a point where we just needed jobs in this community. So during this time, between 2011 and 2013, we purchased an additional 120 acres right south of Lafayette Center Road on the south side of where the General Motors plant is. As the definition of shovel-ready sites changed, when we started, shovel-ready site was just have land. And as we moved through the process, it was have land and have it zoned correctly. And as we moved further down the line, it was have land, have it zoned properly. Oh, and by the way, run infrastructure to it. Well, as we learned the final definition, or at least up to this point, what that final definition was, we did in fact roll with the punches. And we decided to invest the infrastructure, streets, roads, lights, utilities in that industrial park. And about that time, folks began to sit up and take notice. The General Assembly came back and they handed us a check for $30 million to enhance Lafayette Center Road between Roanoke and 69, right south of the General Motors plant and north of this property that we had. A company called North Point Development from Kansas City also took notice. Without doing very much marketing, they went to Greater Fort Wayne, Inc., and they said, boy, do we have a deal for you. What they understood was the proximity of logistics. They looked at plants, jam plants in Arlington, Texas, and the old Saturn plant in Spring Hill, Tennessee, and then they ran some numbers and they reconciled the fact that if indeed they could convince General Motors to move their suppliers across the street from them, that there would be $1 billion in savings to General Motors in just doing that. And so what does that mean to us moving forward? It means we've still got options. They've still got options on the property. But it means that with what they've got right now, there inevitably has to be some jobs coming with it. You don't make the $2.1 million investment and you don't go ahead and take options on the rest of the property without having some jobs in tow. Now, we don't know what that looks like today. We don't know what that means today, but I can assure you that we'll be back in this same place very soon to tell you about the rest of the reward for that particular benefit. So we're here today in part to tell you that the Shovel Ready Site program in Allen County is truly alive and working, and with the partnership that we've been able to develop, it will continue to pay dividends in Allen County. And just to talk a little bit more about that partnership, I'd like to turn it over to Commissioner Therese Brown.
Thank you, Commissioner Peters. Many of the things that Commissioner Peters brought up are phenomenal things. I mean, it's a collaboration between not only Greater Fort Wayne Inc. County Council, the commissioners, the Redevelopment Commission, but also those departments, planning, the county surveyor's office. There was a unique attitude that we brought to this project, trying to bring all parties together so that we could create an environment without harnessing all of these lots, if you will, in a specific manner that might not allow for the creativity of an organization like North Point coming in and being able to develop it in a manner that's going to be beneficial to the improvement and economic improvement, not only for Allen County, but really Northeast Indiana. I would like to thank, again, the Redevelopment Commission for being a leader. This was a hard road, but there were also some obvious wins in this whole process, and that is that everyone was willing to take a risk, take a chance, and it played out very well. So from that standpoint, I think, quite frankly, we should applaud Allen County's departments, Allen County's elected officials, and our boards and commissions for a job well done. And at this point, I believe I would be turning this over to Rich Beck, President of the Allen County Redevelopment Commission. Or the Regional Redevelopment Commission. Maybe we're starting something on it.
No, well, thank you, Commissioner Brown. It's my pleasure to be here today. This has been a long road to travel down, but it actually was quite quick. We secured our last piece of property in December 31st of 2012, and here is today, not quite 2 years later, and we've actually sold the entire the business park, which is what was our objective. I would also reiterate the fact that all of us, the commissioners, the council, and the Redevelopment Commission, take our fiduciary responsibility of managing taxpayer dollars very seriously and not taking any unnecessary risk where we did need to take it, but to do something that made a lot of sense for the community. Redevelopment Commission's objective, of course, is for economic development and where we can play that role. It's not our role to create jobs, but it is our role to create an environment where businesses are willing to come here and invest and bring jobs to the community. In a conversation with the president of North Point yesterday, we asked him the question. We said, was it critical to you that the infrastructure was in place when you made the decision to come here? He said, absolutely critical. He said it was extremely smart for you to go ahead and put that infrastructure in place. He said we could have purchased land for a third of the price, but you took away the hassle and the anxiety by putting in the infrastructure. That was a deciding factor for them. So that was kind of a validation of our supposition that we're on the right path. And the fact that the taxpayers are going to be have been made whole in this situation. So any taxpayer dollars that were put into this project, we received those taxpayer dollars back. So the investment was a good investment for the community. And as Commissioner Peters said, when those jobs start rolling in, that's when the real benefit will take place. The property goes back to the tax rolls, employees will be coming to town, good jobs will be had for all available. It was an immensely collaborative effort. We could not have done it as any one person or any one group. Literally, as was mentioned, the departments in the county came together, the commissions, Greater Fort Wayne, everyone was a part of this, making this happen. This is not something that just an isolated group can get this, be this successful. So it really was instrumental in doing that. It was interesting that we did try to work with some local developers. And during that time, as you recall, finances and economic times are a little bit difficult, and taking that risk was just something they could not do. We ended up with a developer out of town, obviously, but you have to understand that in this situation, we weren't competing against our 10-acre or 10-county friends of DeKalb and Whitley County. We're actually competing against China and Mexico and the rest of the world, wherever GM has a plant, or anyone else that has a plant, because that's the world we live in today. It's a world economy. It's a global economy, and if we're going to play in that sandbox, we got to be serious, and we have to understand how that operates. Also, you're probably aware that TIF districts and redevelopment commissions are under a great deal of scrutiny under the legislature right now. And this is evidence that you don't have to take some of those other choices, that you can get this done. You can do it properly if you do things the right way. And again, I want to extend my appreciation to everyone's efforts on this. My fellow commission members were right there through the thick and thin of this to get this accomplished, and it's a great day for Allen County, quite honestly. It's a very unique situation, and one that we wanted to celebrate and invite you here to celebrate it with us. So I thank you all.
Be happy to answer any questions now.